Hi guys, welcome to this new session or new series of lessons on OCAD. As always, you can start following us if you don't already to keep up to date with everything that's going on. We're going to be working in this series, which should be, not sure exactly, probably about three separate sessions. We're going to be working on a cloudscape. So there's a link in the description to the reference that I'm using, which is just a reference I found on a site called Unsplash, which is great for royalty-free images to work from. So the license is kind of usable for anything pretty much. And at the moment I'm just sketching out an armature, so I just jumped straight into it today. Didn't want to talk too much, trying to get them going a bit quicker, these videos. And what I'm doing right now is just kind of roughly noting in all the kind of darker shapes in a pretty loose way. So I'm working in charcoal, just using this piece of pretty soft charcoal from Nitrum. But any kind of soft willow charcoal will work. In terms of other materials, I'm going to be using a brush for a little bit of sort of smudging, and I've got a kneadable eraser as well. Paper obviously tied up to the board. But yeah, otherwise there's not too much. It's going to be a nice simple set of materials that you can use for these working on your own. If you work alongside, you can either use a different reference, you could find your own reference, or you could go out and do the sketch outdoors, which is probably the ideal, or you can use the same reference that I've got. I'm not going to be sticking super close to the reference, so there's going to be some kind of messing around with some aspects of it. But for the most part, we'll be kind of trying to refer back to it, particularly for the details of the clouds, how the cloud forms work and so on. Clouds are really interesting. They're actually a pretty good natural subject just to learn about all aspects of rendering form, basically. Because they, when lit, particularly in this sort of way, they do have really evident forms. So if you take a look at the reference, you can kind of see the way the light blooms out of the center of this cloud and the way that it's lit, which is really nice. And it's a nice dramatic scene, so it's going to be a pretty dramatic drawing, this. So today I'm just trying to get a pretty kind of loose statement of this whole setup. I'm trying to use the flat of the charcoal just to keep it as loose as possible. So I don't want to jump too quickly into kind of loads of detail. I did start with some fairly detailed little kind of notches, or sort of notes of what's going on. But I want to move back to, particularly for applying this tone, I want to go back to being a little bit looser. The advantage of this softer charcoal is that it obviously applies very loosely or very quickly. You can get some tone down. Not necessarily ideal for details, so we'll probably be using some slightly harder charcoal when we get to a point where we want to put details in. But certainly at this stage it's working all right. And so today we're just trying to figure out sort of approximate relative tonalities, getting these shapes generally placed. I'm going to just use this brush to lay down, or kind of even out the tones that are roughly there. So in terms of sort of relationships between the tones, I know that the bit I want to be darkest is going to be this landscape down below. The sky, we want to kind of glow out from that. So even though the parts of the sky are quite dark, they never go as dark as this stuff down here. And doing this tells me how, absolutely how dark, because I'm just going to use this sort of charcoal the whole time, how dark the image is going to go. So if I want something else to go dark, I can kind of do it in relation to this dark, kind of heavily laid in charcoal. So I know, for instance, that a lot of the sky behind the cloud is quite dark, and particularly sort of the underside of the cloud as well, this bit here, as it kind of starts to roll up towards the lighter part of the cloud, the bottom edge of it. It goes pretty dark as well, like almost, not quite, but almost as dark as that black at the bottom. I can use this kneadable eraser to lift charcoal anywhere where it's gone too dark, which we'll be doing a lot more of in the next couple of sessions. You can start to do it today to kind of keep it clean where necessary. So the blue of the sky is fairly dark as well. Really the only super bright bit is actually the cloud that's being illuminated, or the illuminated part of the cloud. Apologies for that scraping noise. So I'm just going back in and removing charcoal that I laid down, just to kind of keep on top of things, keep things neat where they need to be neater. Got a few little light notes down here as well. So it's worth kind of keeping these things removed, just so it doesn't go overly grey and get difficult to erase in those lighter parts later. A lot of the drawing is going to be quite greyish and covered over ultimately to keep it nice and moody. But these kind of very brighter central sections, I want to kind of make sure I don't go too dark with them to a point where it gets difficult to deal with them. So that's a lot better. I'm just going to start to get a little bit into some of these more kind of complex shadow shapes. We've got these sort of shapes on the clouds that are much darker, not receiving any direct light, or they're either because of the form turning away, or as in the case of this one, they have a shadow being cast onto them by the rest of the cloud. They tend to sort of border the outside, not all of the outside edges, but a lot of the outside edges of the cloud. I'm just going to outline slightly more specifically the outside sort of edges of this darker cloud shape up top, and then I think that's going to be it for this session. We'll be going in kind of working with some sort of smaller sections of, well, probably medium forms of the clouds, just to start to get it to have a bit more form and turn a little bit more. And build up this, we really want to build up this sense of how it glows really. That's our main sort of focus. Yeah, so we'll leave it at that. So it's a fairly kind of, as you can see, pretty loose, sort of messy approach to the start of this piece. But we'll be kind of sort of starting to render and develop different bits and pieces of it next week, moving into probably what will be the final session. I think it'll just be a kind of 3-session piece, this one, taking us through to the end of the school year. So yeah, that's it for now. As always, you can follow us here on YouTube to keep up to date with all the different lessons and workshops we upload here. We've also got interviews with students and professional artists and people working in creative industries and so on. And if you're interested in looking at what sort of full qualifications that we offer, a range of fully qualified courses, you can click the link through to the website as well. And if you need the reference, that's also down in the description as well. So yeah, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys soon.